Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're playing Deep Rock Galactic. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Zarel. Let's get to it. Alright, so today we're doing the Deep Dive assignment, which is the raid-like weekly assignment that you can do in Deep Rock. But before we get to that, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell to be notified of all future episodes as soon as they go live. So let's get into it. So much like other assignments, this is going to be very similar. However, there are some differences. So you do have a procedurally generated set of caves that you're going to explore through, and you're going to go and do some sort of objective. And that is about where the similarities end. When you first start one of these deep dives, right in the bottom center, you can choose between doing a solo, doing a private, or doing a public. It defaults to solo, so if you want to do it with other people, or if you want the ability for other people to join you, you'll want to change that. Additionally, there is no late game joining, so once you get to a particular spot, no one will be able to join you. So keep that in mind. The best bet is to go ahead and have people join you or join other people before you start the mission, and then launch the mission from there. Now, you do have two objectives like any normal assignment. However, both of these assignments must be completed before you can finish. Additionally, unlike other assignments that you can get, local minerals that you can find in a particular region, these will only have nitra and gold. Additionally, the nitra and gold will carry over from one stage to the other, which brings up the point that this is a multi-stage process. So instead of doing one main assignment and maybe doing the optional assignment, you're going to do two assignments, get to the drop pod, and then you're going to move on to the next step of the process, the next stage of the deep dive. And there are 3 stages to each deep dive, and they all have specific modifiers, so they will all have modifiers. Now, this is the normal deep dive. The elite deep dive is a little bit different even from this. Now, unlike other assignments, you cannot change the difficulty of this assignment. And if I had to guess, I would say this is a hazard 3, possibly a hazard 4. Now, do remember that these do scale with the number of players. So the more players you have, the more bad guys you'll have, etc. Now, one of the things, since I did this solo, the first stage that I had was extracting more kite and repairing mini mules. Now, extracting more kite is actually relatively difficult for a solo player because you only have the 4 flares and they regenerate, and you only have one set of eyes looking for more kite instead of 2 or 3 or 4 sets of eyes plus the extra flares. And if you have someone that's a scout, they can light up a whole big area, and most of these are very large rooms with some tunnels in between them, or that is what I came across in my deep dive. Now, in addition to the Morkite, I also had Swarmageddon, which made it very, very difficult to complete that. Moving on to the next stage was an elimination and then recover the black box. So it's kind of a defend an area. So once you get the uplink taken care of, then you have to let it transmit, and you have to defend the area. So you have to stay within that radius until 100%. So you You see it actually started off right around 25%, maybe even 30%. So it got up to 50% relatively quickly. But then, of course, it took a really long time for it to get from 50% up to 100%. And you're going to have consistent wave after wave of enemies coming at you during this time. There's not going to be a lull in the storm. So if you have someone that's a gunner, hopefully you've got ammunition before you start. Obviously, always a great idea to have ammunition ready when you're doing elimination or doing anything where you know there's going to be a lot of enemies coming at you. So make sure that you're, if possible, you have full ammo or close to full ammo and supplies, like shield charge. Great thing to have on this type of mission. But everyone has their own ability, and each one would help out. Some more than others, depending on what your objective is. Like a scout, really great for extracting morkite because you can light up a whole big area. Gunner, really good for this type of thing where you have to defend an area. Same thing with the engineer, where you can put down turrets. And the driller is also good for things like, getting through walls to areas very quickly. Now, taking out dreadnoughts, depending on what dreadnoughts you get, could be a little bit easier, a little bit harder. The Hive Guard tends to be a little difficult because you have to take out the little sentinels before you can actually damage the boss at all, and then you have to take down the shields. This one, the Lacerator Arbalist, they kind of share each other. They're kind of like twins. They share each other's health. So even if you get one really far down, all of a sudden they'll go immune and then heal. And you'll see that again and again over several waves until you can knock one out. Once you knock one out, there's no more healing, and you can take that other one out relatively easily. So you only have a certain amount of time and or damage to do the damage phase. So you want to take down as much damage on both of them as quickly as possible. If you're in a group, if you're by yourself, you have to kind of keep an eye on both of them and see where each one's at, if you have that option. Once you get one down, like I said, hopefully the other one, or the other one should be relatively close to, should be low health, so it should be pretty easy to take the second one down once you get the first one. Now, always in the back of your mind, you're always wondering if I really need to take out, or order, I should say, more supplies, get a resupply. Because each stage, you keep that nitra and gold. You want to go into the next stage with as much nitra as possible. And of course, the more gold you have, the more credits you'll get at the end of the mission. So it's always a good idea to get as much gold as possible so you maximize your credits on a mission. And something like the deep dive, you can easily get several hundred gold pieces, which will make it a lot easier. And then once you are done with both objectives, you hit the button on the mule and then make a mad dash for the drop pod to get out of there. In this particular stage, I had trouble getting around an oppressor. Oppressor is very difficult to take out solo, so I opted to, rather than confront the oppressor and take him down, to go around him. Now, a lot of times you'll notice that usually the start area is the area that your drop pod's going to show up in. This particular time, it was not, because where I called it in was relatively close to the initial or starting location, so I ended up having to go through the start area over to another area to get out. And of course, all the while you're going to be getting attacked by enemies, so it can get really hairy really quickly. If you're in a group, try to stay together as you're going back. And it's kind of hard to do sometimes, because if you have a driller might be like, oh, I'm just taking a straight shot right to the drop pod. I'm not going hither and yon to try and make a path there. I'm going to make my own path, which you can absolutely do if you're a driller. If you're within, I would say, 100 meters with a full tank on your drill, you can do it. If not, if it's a larger distance, if it's over 100 meters, or if you don't have a full tank, you're kind of putting yourself and your team in danger where you may not make it out. Now, sometimes when you get into a stage, and it can happen on any assignment, and it's just kind of crummy that it happens on deep dives, is that you could be assaulted as soon as you get off of the drop pod, which is what happened to me in the third stage. So if you've been paying attention, the first stage was Swarmageddon, second stage was Volatile Guts, and then this one was Mactera Play, which is all those flyers. So depending on what the modifier is for the assignment, it'll make it a little bit potentially more dangerous, depending on what it happens to be. So this one was repairing the mini mules. So it's a salvage operation with an egg hunt, which was actually not terrible. Mini mules, if they're not close to you, you can kind of look around, and once you scan the mini mule, it'll show up on the terrain map, and so you can find them. So if they're not relatively close by, you can find a way to get back to them. Get to the legs, bring them back to the mini mule, then repair the mini mule. Now, luckily, you don't have the follow-up steps for the mini mule, the salvage operation, where you have to go and fuel up and reconnect the old drop pod. That would add another layer of difficulty onto an already potentially very difficult mission. So you just have to find the mini mule, which pings, and it has kind of an aura around it. So if you're anywhere even close, you'll be able to see it and know that it's there. The other one, egg hunt, the eggs actually show up on the terrain map, and they kind of glow a reddish color in this organic material. So you'll have to dig through the organic material and get to it. If you dig towards the glow, you're going in the right direction. You're looking for this kind of greenish colored egg. And once you get it free, that will trigger almost always a wave of enemies. And even though I was on the third stage, I was still kind of looking ahead to the next stage and getting some nitra for the next stage, even though there was no next stage. So once you get that egg into the mule, and once you're on that third stage and you get that last objective, so you have 6 objectives in 3 stages to complete. Once you've got it done, then all you got to do is call the drop pod and get the heck out of there, and then you're done. Now, the biggest reason to be doing the deep dive, as you can only get rewards once per week, are the matrix cores. And there are a couple different types of matrix cores. I like to put them into 3 categories. There's cosmetics, which will open up, victory poses or beards or mustaches or headgear, stuff like that. Then there's clean overclocks. It'll give you a positive effect on one of, and it's always random, a random gun, or an unstable overclock. And the unstable overclock gives you a positive effect, but also gives you a negative effect. If it's your first overclock for that particular weapon, even if it's an unstable one, it's usually worthwhile unless it is contrary to the build that you're building. So it doesn't make sense to have more stun chance or stun duration on a weapon if you're only going for damage. Likewise, if you're building stun duration and stun chance, you don't want to take away from that. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check us out on social media, and thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll see you next time.
I'm gonna look dope in this. Weapon overclock in the making! Forging weapon overclock!